Hi, I'm Mark with Crown & Caliber, and welcome to Hidden Gems. The Cartier tank is an icon of design. It's one of the very few watches that has lasted for over a century with almost no change. But in that, they've created a bunch of different lines. Some have lasted and some have just periodically popped up and naturally become hidden gems because of that. And today, we're looking at one of those. It's the tank Basculante. So let's get into it. So in the beginning with the Cartier tank in 1917, Cartier created an icon of design. It's probably the most overused phrase when you talk about watches that have been around a while, but if anyone deserves it, it's the tank and the Santos. Over 100 years, nearly unchanged, beautiful watches. But sometimes it's worth playing with it, even if it's perfect, playing with the design, just to see what else can you do with it. And Cartier did that from the very beginning. 1917 is the year the tank came out, and within the next 20 years, Cartier's already created the Cintré Asymmétrique. Cartier wasn't happy with just creating this fantastic design, it was, what else can this design do? With that being the idea, when in 1931, Jaeger-LeCoultre came out with the Reverso, it created this opportunity for another design. Cartier looked at that and went, that's a genius idea. A watch that can flip around so that the crystal is actually protected whether you're playing polo or wherever your active lifestyle takes you. It's the original sports watch. And in that vein, Cartier went and said, hey, let's make that, but in our own style. And a year later comes out with the tank Basculante, a watch that also flips over to protect the crystal. That's where the history of watchmaking gets really interesting, because you think, oh, they saw that design, they copied it. Sort of. See, what really happened is Jaeger-LeCoultre and Cartier have a very close relationship from the beginning. Cartier is a jeweler. They make beautiful watches, they design them, but they don't make movements. They've almost never made movements. Their first mechanical movements didn't come out till less than 15 years ago. They traditionally, and especially early on, used Jaeger-LeCoultre movements. This closeness created a lot of back and forth, a lot of talking about different designs and movements and how things can change together. And if you look at the Reverso, it's a rectangle. It looks like the tank. It is actually taken from Cartier's design, and then JLC put their spin on it to create an original watch, an original design that has become a core of who they are. If you're Cartier and you're going, that's cool, I also want to do that, well, JLC is the one that made it for them. They designed the Basculante for Cartier. So JLC actually made both the Reverso and the Basculante. But when they actually got the second attempt at it and tried to do it again with the Basculante, they did something a little cooler. They did the same thing as far as being able to flip it over and protect the crystal, but they actually did it with half the amount of parts the Reverso uses. It's actually a more efficient mechanism. It's easier to produce, it's less likely to break because it uses less parts. It's actually the improvement on the Reverso in a lot of ways from an engineering standpoint. There was one big drawback though. When they created this case, it creates a very slim spot for the actual watch movement to go into. Instead of having the full case, there's a case and then a bracket and then the actual watch. And as you get smaller in that smaller footprint, it gets really difficult to find a movement that actually fit in here, especially in 1932 when it came out. That's when you have one of the rare times that Cartier does not use a JLC movement. They actually got the watch designed by JLC and then went over to Piguet. And Piguet had a movement that was 2.1 millimeters thick and would fit in that case and is a beautiful high-end movement. It's the Piguet 6.10, or as Cartier called it, just the 610. The tank Basculante, it's inspired by the Reverso. The Reverso is inspired by the tank. They take from each other. And I think what it really does is show how intertwined the history of these brands can be. JLC made movements for everybody. Another reason why they're called the watchmaker's watchmaker. And at the same side, it's also why Cartier is such an amazing designer, because they could focus on that and trust the movements to the other guys. And it's one of those things that's worked out quite well. The Basculante is one of the perfect examples of that. Different brands have tried different ways to come up with how do you protect the crystal. But honestly, it's the original two. It's the Reverso and the Basculante that actually did it right. And as we know, the Reverso is central to the JLC line. It's the Basculante that's the hidden gem. It was never meant to be its own line. So it's something that's come in and out of production. It's never meant to be a full line as part of their brand. And with that coming in and out, the tank Basculante will forever be a hidden gem in Cartier's collection. Thank you for joining me as we looked at one of the hidden gems in Cartier's collection with the tank Basculante. If there's another one in their collection you think we should look at, let us know in the comments. See you next time on Hidden Gems.